Greetings, YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Troy. If you're new to the channel, I'm a former fat guy sharing my body transformation story with the hopes that it might help someone else. If it helps one other person, it was worth it. If you support me in that, what I ask is that you take a second to smash that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it really means the world to me. I'm so grateful for the over 600 subscribers, everyone who has supported me thus far. Thank you guys so much. And let's get into it, guys. Body transformation. There was a time when I was hopelessly overweight, trying everything, failing, felt like there was no way I could ever change or even put a dent in what I was working with. And, I was able to do it over time because I was very fortunate to have some very good mentors that came into my life that showed me it was possible. And if you're watching this and if you're in that place where you feel like you've tried everything and you've been failing and it's just so hard, I just want you to know that I support you so much. And I know you can do it. And the only reason that you're unhappy with where you're at and you're watching this video and you're doing the research, the only reason is because you're capable of something else. And you can change your body, you can change your life. And in this video, I'm going to talk about an advanced concept that may or may not be right for everyone. We're going to talk about fasting. And I'd love to hear what's going well for you. I know there's a former fat guy out there right now that's watching this video that's saying, fasting's crap. I used XYZ, I used, a lot of guys right now are using these apps. I'm hearing great things about the apps. And put it in the comments, whatever's going well for you. Like I said, along my journey in the beginning, I started with having freezer meals. Okay, I did freezer meals, and the freezer meals, like I did Healthy Choice or Lean Cuisine, and if you know anything about them, they're very small. And the other good thing about them is that they're frozen, because I have a propensity for overeating. And so for me, it's like once I start eating, it's so hard for me to stop. So portion control was difficult. And by having these little small frozen little bricks, right? It's a frozen little brick that I can't eat unless I put it in the microwave for 7 minutes, So that I would no more than 2, right? But sometimes I could stop after 1 because I didn't want to go through the pain in the butt of thawing out the other one and going through the process, right? And so I used my laziness as a tool to help me in the situation. And all jokes aside, that was the strategy that I used to be able to learn how to eat a little bit less. If you can learn how to eat a little bit less, right? Instead of eating off of a large plate, eat off of a small plate. You'd be amazed that, I must have some type of the goldfish brain or something, but something about eating off the small plate makes me feel like I've eaten more food. But, I had a lot of really good success with measuring my food, focusing on macros, right? Really manipulating my macros, weighing everything out, and then just kind of being very precise, small meals, perfectly portioned throughout the day. And that's where I really made most of my progress, guys, if I'm being honest. But the idea is, if I was able to live the life of a professional fitness athlete, okay, which I haven't been able to do, but if I was living that life, I would eat small meals spaced throughout the day. But what I've found in my life, because I've always worked blue collar type jobs, 9 to 5 shift work, and it's so hard in those types of environments to be able to prepare your food in advance, carry it around with you, right? Measure it out. Where are you going to keep your food? There's an emergency. I used to work in human services, and it was a constant emergency. So it would be getting time for my meal and I would almost be ready to eat, and then, emergency. And then it's like, go here. And it becomes impossible to stay on your diet, your schedule, when you're doing that sort of small meal space throughout the day, if you have a certain type of job. And what I find, even, now I'm an office worker, and in the office, it's so stressful in there that it's easier for me to not eat. And so that's what this video is about, guys. Fasting. It's not for everyone, but it's easy. And if I'm being honest, for the most part, all diets work, okay? Particularly if whatever it is that's going on as a result of the diet. Oh, I'm eating clean foods, or I'm doing the app, or I'm writing things down, or I'm doing paleo or keto, or, vegan, whatever it is that you do. They all pretty much work, because what happens is you're being mindful, you're paying attention at a bare minimum. And then oftentimes what happens is, because you're eating the same sorts of things and stuff, it's probably just a little bit easier to eat a little bit less. You're avoiding some of those things that may be like trigger foods. And so guys, with fasting, the thing about it that's so good is that it's so easy, because you can choose to eat at a time that's right for you. And you can free yourself of having to worry about prepping food, carrying it around with you, the meals, right? Oh, it's time for my meal. Oh, my boss called me into a meeting. You don't even have to worry about that, because you can just say, you know what, I'll eat at a later point in time. There was a period in my life where I worked as an operator out in the field, and I wouldn't eat for days. And I wouldn't let it affect me psychologically. I wouldn't tell myself, oh, this thing came up, so I missed my meal, and then I would just, mentally go right in the tank. That wouldn't happen to me, because I would just tell myself, you know what, I'll eat when I get the opportunity. And I've met so many people. It was just recently, it was Ramadan, which was my first exposure to the idea of fasting. Like I said, I used to work in human services. I worked in the institutions. And there was a group of guys who were Muslim, and I was able to observe their community and the practice of not eating during daylight. So what I noticed about these guys was they were all in great shape. And here's a bunch of dudes who are jacked. They're still in the gym working out. They're still going to work. They have all the energy in the world, and they're socializing. They're doing all the things. They're jacked, right? And they're not eating all day. And then what they would do is they would break their fast when the sun went down, and they would eat in the evening, one big meal. Some of them would eat a snack before sunrise. But that's it. And I learned, hey, you know what? What would it be like to just eat once a day? And that's what I do now. And I've been doing that for maybe 15 years now. One meal a day. And it's so easy, guys. And you can have your meal whenever you want. But it's something to consider. And then, one other quick story about the fasting that made me realize what, was possible. I was originally one of these types of bros where it's like, oh, you don't want to waste your workout, and you're worried that your body's going to eat your hard-earned muscle that you've worked so hard to build in the gym, right? And I think that bros will worry about that typically. I know that I really used to, much more than I do now. It's important for me to be strong, but I just sort of learned over time that my body isn't going to preferentially metabolize muscle. It just doesn't make sense to me. I ask myself the question, why do I have body fat then, right? What is body fat for? What is that? What could that have been designed for from an evolutionary standpoint? And I tell myself, oh, well, maybe it's to store energy for times of hardship. And so it just makes sense to me that my body would burn body fat. If it had to burn something, it's not going to burn my muscle. It needs my muscle so that I can go out and look for food. So it burns the body fat. And that's what it does, guys. People act like they can't. People act like they can't lose the weight. They can't lose the body fat. And if you want to tell yourself that, fine. but it makes it harder on you than if you tell yourself a story of, the reason I have this body fat, it's stored energy, and my body can eat this for fuel if it had to in a situation where it was required. And that's where fasting comes in. And I mentioned how when I would be out in the field, I wouldn't have access to a bathroom, right, or a kitchen, or really even a time that was safe. If you're out in the woods and there's someone also out in the woods that wants to kill you, are you going to make yourself vulnerable to eat and go to the bathroom, right? When it's life or death, I would recommend against that. So I learned that I was able to not eat. And back to the other story about a television show that I'd love to hear your thoughts if you're an enthusiast also about these survival shows. One that comes to mind is called Naked and Afraid. And when I began my fasting journey, not only had I met these great Muslim people that were observing the Ramadan, and they opened my mind around the idea of fasting. At the same time, I began watching the show Naked and Afraid. And the contestants on this show would have no clothes. They would be dropped off in the woods somewhere, and they would have to survive for 21 days out in the wilderness. And I think that most people feel like, there would be stuff everywhere, right? Because nature is bountiful. But when you're a naked human in the woods, what you notice when you watch these people on the show is they get nothing. Without your tools and all your fancy stuff as a human out in nature, you get so very little, nothing. Most of them got nothing. They would catch like a grasshopper or a frog or something. And if it was me, I would probably just rather just not even eat those things. Nothing. Most of them got nothing. 21 days with nothing, and they were fine. And that opened my eyes to the idea that, wait a minute, maybe I can actually go much longer than I thought, than I was told, than the story that I tell myself. I can go longer than that without food. And when I started doing it, I realized that I could, and I also realized that I felt great when I did it. Now, like I said, it's not for everyone, but the invitation is to consider how fasting might work for you as part of a mindful program. Bringing your attention to what you're doing, right? What you're eating, when you're eating, and all these things matter. It's within your power to manipulate these things in your favor. I know that you can do it, and I know that if you utilize, right, some of these things that are available to you, you can make it so much easier. You can make it almost effortless. So it's within your power, guys. I know that you can do it. Thanks for watching the video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.